need to tell you something. And I want you to pay attention to every detail, because what happened on that farm, it wasn't a coincidence. It never was. My name is Renata, and the man I loved, and still love, in that crooked and painful way we love someone we've lost, is named Marcos. Marcos Henrique Cavalcante. He was 34 years old, broad shoulders, calloused hands from growing up, helping his father in the fields. A man of the land, a realmo. The idea for the trip was mine. It has always been mine, this guilt. When we got out of the car, Marcos stood still for a moment, just looking. I asked what was wrong. He shook his head and said, "Nothing. It's too beautiful to be real." I should have paid more attention to that sentence. The house was old masonry, thick walls, wooden windows swollen from the humidity. It had that smell of a closed place, mold mixed with wet earth, and something else. Something I couldn't name at the time. Later I knew, but at the time, I didn't. The property was large. There was a huge backyard. That ended in dense forest. My grandmother always said that place was blessed, that the land there was alive. But living land doesn't mean good land. That I learned the hard way. And then the noise stopped. There was a long silence. So long, I went to the back window. Marcos was standing in the middle of the yard, looking at the ground still, with that posture of someone seeing something. The body understands before the mind. I called him. He didn't answer at first. When he turned his not off, that kind of thoughtful, when someone is trying to convince themselves. They're overreacting. "Come here," he said, "but come slowly." Bones, not just one. There were many, scattered over an area of about 3 square meters, as if someone had thrown them there. "It must be some animal that died here," I said. Marcos slowly shook his head. "Renata, animals that die don't end up scattered like this. This was placed here." I didn't want to understand what that meant. A footprint, large, wide, with 5 toes pressed deep into the mud. It looked like a dog's footprint. But it was too big to be any dog I had ever seen. Marcos placed his own open hand beside it. The footprint was almost twice the size. The sun was starting to set. The forest behind the yard was getting dark, and from somewhere inside, far, but not far enough, came a sound. It wasn't barking. It wasn't a howl. It was something in between. That night, we didn't talk much about what we saw. I think we didn't want to give it too much weight. That's a mistake we make when we're afraid, but don't want to admit it. We treat danger as if ignoring it were the same. as solving it. We had dinner with the wood stove. Canned beans, rice, and sausage. The fire made the room flicker in orange. For a moment, it felt beautiful, intimate. Marco stayed quiet for a long time. I knew that silence of his. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of someone processing something and not wanting to scare the other person. "Do you think there are jaguars around here?" he asked. "My grandmother never mentioned jaguars. Your grandmother also never mentioned footprints that size." We both stared at the fire for a while. Neither of us said what we were really thinking. When we went to sleep, Marcos locked the front door with the bolt and placed a chair under the doorknob. I pretended not to notice. He pretended it was just precaution. The first night was disturbed around 2 a.m. I woke up without knowing why. There was no noise. At least none I could identify. It was that kind of sudden awakening. When through his body through some old it detects something wrong before the mind processes it. And then I heard it. Footsteps in the yard, slowed out heavy, with a rhythm that wasn't a dog's, too spaced out, too deliberate, as if whatever was walking out there was choosing where to step. You know that feeling that if you move, if you make any sound, whatever is out there will know you're awake. That was exactly it. The footsteps stopped. There was total silence for maybe 30 seconds, and then something punched the wall outside the bedroom. It didn't break in, but it almost did a strong blow, as if it were testing our fear through the wall. I woke Marcos with my hand over his mouth. Before he could speak, his eyes went from sleep to panic in less than 2 seconds. He understood without saying anything. We stayed lying there, motionless, for 40 minutes. The footsteps left before dawn. In the morning, Marcos went to the yard before me. More footprints. This time, many. As if it had walked in circles around the house during the night. One of them right under the bedroom window. "We're leaving," I said. Marcos stayed silent. "Marcos, we're leaving today." He stood up slowly. There was something in his expression I had never seen before. It wasn't exactly fear. It was the look of someone who saw something and can't undo it anymore. "There's something I didn't tell you yesterday," he said. "When I found the bones, there was a mark on the ground near them. It looked like a deep scratch in the dirt, in the shape of a circle. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to be afraid." I wanted to yell at him, But I looked at his face and understood. He was afraid too, but his fear was different from mine. Mine was to run away. His was that it might already be too late for that. At that moment, from the dense forest behind the yard, came a loud crack of a branch breaking, as if something large had moved abruptly. And then, absolute silence. The birds stopped singing at the same time. We started packing in a hurry, without discussing, without planning, throwing into the bags whatever we could grab first. I remember the sound of our own breathing, heavy and tense, filling the silence of that room. That's when I saw the dog. It was standing at the entrance of the side corridor. Big, very big. Dark, dull fur, almost without shine, as if it were a shadow that had taken shape. Marcos, I called softly. He had reached the car. He turned, saw me, frozen on the porch, followed my gaze. The animal turned its head toward us, slowly, with a calm that no wild animal should have, in the presence of humans. Its eyes reflected the rising sun, like two pieces of amber. And for a second, I swear on everything sacred, I had the feeling it was recognizing us, not as a threat, but as prey. And I ran down the side corridor without looking back. I heard, and this is what stays in my head to this day, the sound I can't explain. I heard a noise of joints, like bones rearranging, like something changing shape as it moved. I didn't look because I knew that if I'd stop running, the dirt road lasted 40 minutes. The longest 40 minutes of my life. Neither of us said a word. When we reached the asphalt, Marcos pulled over and kept his hands on the wheel for a long moment. I realized he was shaking. I saw something, he said. When I was running through the corridor, there was a footprint on the ground. Fresh, in the mud by the wall. But, in the middle of the footprint, Renata, there was the impression of a human heel. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. We left and never went back. The farm was sold 2 years later. My mother asked why we gave up so quickly. I said the house was in bad condition. She accepted it without asking more. Marcos and I broke up 8 months later. He never really explained why. He just said he needed space, that he was having nightmares, that he woke up every night with the feeling that something outside knew his name. I moved, changed apartments, neighborhoods, cities. Tried to forget. On an ordinary Tuesday, coming back from work, I found something on the floor in front of my door. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a flyer. It was a small, clean, white bone, placed at the center of a scratch semicircle on the floor. identical to the one Marcos had described in the yard of the farm. I stood there looking at it for a time I can't measure. The hallway was empty, silent. No cameras on that floor. I never found out who left that there. I never found out how they knew where I lived.